everybody. Thank you for joining us. I am here today with Schuyler Sweet, the principal of Boyd Lighting, and he is going to take us through an amazing presentation to let us know everything we need to know about LEDs and make it as super simple as possible, which I'm dying to hear how he does this. So Schuyler, you can take it away and let everyone know about the questions.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you so much, Gina. Really appreciate it. And thank you all for coming. We really appreciate you taking the time today. Obviously lighting is a little more technical now than it used to be. So one of the things we wanted to do is just help you to get more comfortable with lighting, with the technology, so that we're all speaking the same language. One thing that we do have available to you as well during this presentation, our Director of Engineering, Mr. Mark Gaynor, will be on the call. He's going to be manning the chat bar. So if you have a question, instead of having to wait till the end of the presentation, feel free to enter it into the chat box and Mark will answer that for you. So without further ado, I think let's get started. All right, so again, thank you for coming. We really do appreciate it. The title of today's presentation is Taking the Guesswork Out of LEDs. So the beauty of light is just so transformative. It evokes so much emotion. I'm sure many of you have really fond memories of these wonderful kind of spring kind of rainy days in Seattle by the fire, and you're reading a book. We've all obviously been kind of in this dark times of COVID. The beautiful thing is, there is light at the end of the tunnel now. A lot of people are getting vaccinated. I'm sure many of you are planning your vacations, and we're all super excited to get back to normal life. For me, hopefully I'm looking forward to bonfires at the beach with friends. Those types of kind of light, they kind of have these very positive memories for all of us. But conversely, bad lighting can remind us of these really kind of negative kind of experiences. Like we all remember the 80s, the 90s, the schools, hospitals had this like terrible kind of fluorescent lighting. It was blue, it was green, it was, it does not give good skin tones. And so, it's really important to have that good lighting to add to the experience, to ensure that people come away feeling very positive in the environment in which they've been. So I think one of the things that's beautiful about LEDs is that they do have the ability to transform a space, and there's a lot of flexibility within the technology. So real quick, we're going to do just a quick background on the types of lamping, just so we have kind of a base level. Obviously, we all grew up with incandescents. They've been around for well over 100 years, and yet they're being phased out for good reasons. But the beauty of incandescent lamps, is that they do have these really warm skin tones. You're going to get phenomenal CRI, and because we all grew up with them, we all really like them. But they're imperfect. So some of the negatives or the cons with this type of lamp is they actually put out more heat than light. If you remember those 150 watt A lamps, like they were so hot to the touch, so phenomenally inefficient. In a lot of places like California and New York, you can't even buy them anymore. So, obviously the next kind of iteration of what people were using, and especially in commercial settings, were fluorescent lamps. And so we showed the schools and the hospitals where it was kind of the blue green and it was flickering and it was just very like unflattering. Then they brought in these CFLs into the home probably 10, 12 years ago. I remember when we were like retrofitting an apartment for me, and we were screwing these all in, and it was the same issue. It was kind of a little bit blue, a little bit green. Now, that being said, fluorescents did ultimately get really good at color temperature, but it took too long to get there. So, obviously then the next generation was LEDs, and, many of you are using these as screw-ins in your homes and probably have been for quite some time, but a lot of the decorative fixtures now are going more that direction as well. So, the CRI is really good on these, phenomenally longer lifespan. Like these are night and day compared to incandescent. Obviously, energy consumption is a big deal residentially because, every dad in the house is watching that thermostat. And then commercially, it's really important if you want to get LEED certification, for example, that you need to minimize your lumens per square foot. So, the LED retrofit lamp was really good as kind of this temporary solution, but it wasn't the end all be all. So kind of the progression from those LED retrofit lamps was moving towards the integral LEDs, which we'll talk about in a second. So color temperature, incandescent fixtures were historically 2700 Kelvin. 2700 K is this really warm light. It's perfect for your residences. A lot of, bedrooms are in this kind of this lighting, your dining room, your living room, etc. 3000 K, it's a little bit of a whiter light. And so, we'll see those in areas where you're looking for a little bit more focus. If you're in the kitchen, for example, and you're cooking dinner, you don't want to like mistake your finger for a carrot. So you want to have a little bit brighter light. Same can be said in kind of a powder room if you're applying makeup, shaving, etc. It's something you're trying to be a little more focused on. And then in kind of more your commercial settings in your office space, you're going to have a cooler light, a brighter light, and that might be more like 3500 or 4000 Kelvin. So again, they can be utilized in these different spaces, in these different areas. And in so doing, you're finding the right light for the space. So I just wanted to touch on that. A lot of the LED fixtures, much like your lamps that you buy in the store, they come in a specific color temperature. So for example, our tea light pendant was designed by an architecture firm in San Francisco called Adlin Darling. And this has been used in a myriad of applications, whether it's residential, over bars, countertops, dining room tables, pool tables, to commercially over conference tables specifically. And these are great because they're offered in 3 different color temperatures. So you can have it at your 2700 K, which would be really good over your dining room table, all the way up to 3500 K for your office space where you're looking for that brighter light, you're trying to focus a bit more. We offer these in 3 different sizes, but we do all sorts of customs, so keep that in mind. About 35% of what we do is modification resistant designs. So if you like what we have and you're like, hey, I like it, but can you make it a little bigger, a little smaller, a different color? Those are conversations we love to have. So the Ghost is another fixture. So this one, you notice that it's offered in 2700 as well as 3500. So we designed this thinking it would go into a lot of kind of corporate interiors where they would need that kind of cooler, brighter light, as well as kind of your modern residences, which is why we offer it at that 2700 K. So just keep those in mind. And if you guys have any questions, again, Mark's available to answer those for you. We'll also have a Q&A at the end, but I figured, why wait? Don't hold on to them. Ask whenever you need. So another key and critical component of lighting is the color rendering index, CRI. And this is extremely important because we want our strawberries or our fabrics or our art to look exactly as it's supposed to. And so one of the things with fluorescents when they came out, and we talked about the blue and the green, is they had low CRI. So the colors didn't render exactly as they were supposed to. And this is an issue if you pick this amazing fabric and you're putting it on the couch and then you put it in the space under these lamps with low CRI, and all of a sudden that forest green looks kind of brown. So CRI is a critical component of lighting. And one of the beautiful things about the LEDs that we carry is they're all 90 plus CRI. So we get really good color rendering on all the LEDs we use. Partially due to the fact that when California and New York were creating the new codes to implement LEDs as kind of the standard, they enforced these very stringent requests upon the LED manufacturers to ensure that we didn't have that situation with fluorescents where we have this bad connotation. So LED manufacturers were forced to create these really high quality LEDs quickly. And while it took a little bit to get there, these last 3 or 4 years, they've gotten really, really good. So hardwired LEDs. This is what we utilize in a lot of our LED fixtures and most of what we come out with every year. So what you'll notice on the left, we actually have our LED, a lot of our LEDs custom made for us. So you'll see our logo on there. This is the linear tape that can be used in a ton of different ways. And in a lot of our linear fixtures, much like what you saw on the tea light, and then wrapped around the circumference of the Ghost as well. The other LEDs that we use quite often are these little discs. They're called chip-on-board LEDs. So what's cool about these is they have very little footprint. So you can design fixtures in these kind of new ways where you can create these really slim fixtures, very cool. And you don't have to design around that A lamp. So the other thing about the LEDs, the hardwired LEDs, is that they have a phenomenally high lumens per watt, which is the amount of light that you're getting per the amount of energy used. All our LEDs are rated for 50,000 plus hours, which, as you can see below, is quite a long time. Now, I know, you know, in a residential application, maybe the lights are on 3 to 6 hours a day. So just to give you an idea of how long those are going to last, it's like years and years and years. However, in some commercial and contract settings, you know, they do have them on 12 hours a day, 24 hours a day. And in that kind of situation, they will want to swap out the LEDs at some point. So one of the things that lighting designers came and told us about 4 or 5 years ago was that, you know, we do need to design our fixtures so that the LEDs can be swapped out in the field. So that is something that we have taken to heart and that we do utilize in our designs, so that if someone is trying to replace the LEDs, whether, you know, an LED went bad or it's been used for 50,000 hours, that it can be, you know, fixed on site. So one thing that our director of engineering did remind me to tell you is that while our LEDs are rated for 50,000 plus hours, a lot of them now that we carry are rated for even like 60,000 hours. So phenomenal efficiency, huge lifespan, and that's just amazing for your energy bill. So you can crank that heat up in the winter. So just a couple examples of how these are used. So I mentioned the strips in the previous fixtures. The fixture on the left is was designed by Deirdre Jordan. It's this beautiful bronze fixture. It's part of a series of 3, and utilizes 2 3-inch strips of LEDs. Now, because they're 3-inch strips, you're not getting a huge amount of light. It's kind of used for ambient lighting, which we'll touch on a little later. Whereas the fixture on the right, the Obi, that was designed by Juan Poggi out of Florida, amazing designer, total sweetheart. And it utilizes the 9-watt chip-on-board Bridgelux LEDs, those round discs. And this is a phenomenal amount of light. And so the beautiful thing is that you can dim it down. We also have an additional diffuser above the LED in addition to the glass cylindrical diffuser. So again, really beautiful, different ways that they can be used. So the one thing about LEDs is, unlike an incandescent where you screw it in and it turns on, LEDs have to be powered by a power supply. A power supply is referred to as a driver. Much like fluorescents were powered by ballasts, the LEDs utilize a driver to power them. So, as I had mentioned earlier, the LEDs allow us to design in these new and different ways. They're so slim in profile, and you can create these really minimalist fixtures, you know, just an inch off the wall. However, drivers are often not quite as small as the LEDs. And so, you know, you have to take that into account when designing the fixture, and you'll have to take that into account when installing the fixture. So without further ado, we're going to get into all the fun and joy of drivers, which, as you can see, come in all shapes and sizes, just like us. So we're going to get into integral drivers first, because that is all of our favorite kind of driver. So an integral driver is a driver that is housed within the fixture. The Alex sconce shown here is part of our David Alexander collection. It's absolutely beautiful. The glass is made by an artist in the Bay Area named Lachazar Boyadjev, and it is literally art. He hand carves it himself. It's hand cast. It is 20 pounds of pure sexy. It's just cosmic. It's illuminated by these 2 strips of LED on the top and the bottom. And that light kind of permeates and refracts through all the bubbles within the glass. And you get this just amazing kind of kaleidoscopic effect in there. It's really, really beautiful. So how do you power that? So what we do is we have the driver shown, you know, with that blue arrow and the little blue box in the back. And so that's housed within that back plate. That back plate then attaches to the J-box, meaning that the driver is housed within the fixture, and therefore it's an integral driver. These are really good because it's simple. You just attach it to the J-box and you're good to go. So the next kind of driver that we use is going to be the semi-recessed driver. So Mark was kind enough to render your skyline on our plateau series. So this whole fixture series is fun because it was designed to be this very minimalist, slender, slim kind of corridor hallway lighting. And then I met with some designers and they were like, you could have room numbers, you could have pool and spa and everything. But I think in reality, the Seattle skyline looks far better than any of those ideas. So, but because this fixture is so slim, there's really not anywhere to put that driver. So one of the things that we were able to do was to design the driver so that it semi-recesses into the J-box. So it's still technically an integral driver. However, these semi-recessed drivers will require a specific type of J-box, like an octagonal J-box. All of this information is going to be on our tear sheet, so it's readily available for you. But always good to inquire if a tear sheet says remote driver. Speaking of remote drivers, so this can be a little complicated. And sometimes you need a remote driver because there's just nowhere to put it. So for example, these are two different canopies from two different 48-inch fixtures. So the NUMI, which I wish I could show you, it's really beautiful. It's, for the next go around on this presentation, it's going to be a gorgeous walnut fixture. But we designed it to have a remote driver. So that canopy is really small. The Ghost, which you saw in one of the previous images, has about a 12-inch canopy because we have to hide an 11-inch driver in it. So basically what you're seeing here is a very different profile on those canopies. Obviously with the NUMI, you're merely covering the J-box. So it's a decorative element that, connects the hanging apparatus to the fixture. Whereas the Ghost canopy has to be much wider and larger in depth to house that 11-inch by 1.5-inch driver. So just keep that in mind. Now, that being said, in not every application, do you want to have that big canopy? In some cases, you might say, we would rather, or we don't have room for that canopy. Can we put something very small that just covers the canopy and we'll remote the driver elsewhere? In that kind of situation, you absolutely can. So we'll talk about how those can be utilized. So this is our ESA sconce. Again, same glass as the previous Alex, phenomenally gorgeous. And so these are a couple of sconces and they're very slim, they're very slender. They're only 1.5 inches wide. Obviously that's not going to cover a J-box either. One of the cool things about this fixture is we actually custom designed bracketry to allow the basically mounting mechanism to be mudded into the wall so that this has this very European aesthetic and that we don't have a clunky 4-inch J-box cover. There's also no room for the driver in these fixtures, and so those will need to be remote as well. Similar concept here with our branch sconce. So our in-house designer was like, I'm sick of all these like really clunky back plates. So he designed this amazing swing arm sconce that looks nothing like any other swing arm sconce out there. And again, with this phenomenally slim back plate, same mounting bracketry where you can have it mudded into the wall. And we've also done custom back plates where if someone's like, hey, this is going on stone, or I need to have a J-box cover, we've totally made customs of those and it's super easy. But in these two instances, because of the size and the slight nature of these fixtures, there's nowhere to put the driver, so they have to be remoted. So what we mean by a remote driver is that it's remotely installed in another location. So for example, in this instance, you're putting the branch sconce on the wall, by the headboard. It's going to be used as a reading lamp. But the driver is being hidden, in this instance, up in the canopy, or up in the ceiling rather. In a lot of vanity settings, they're hidden in the cabinetry. In some homes, there's entire rooms or closets dedicated to these types of power supplies. So they can be used in a lot of different ways. One of the things to note about the remote drivers is there's typically a distance you can go. We recommend less than 100 feet, but if you increase the gauge of the wires, you can go farther. That's a conversation to have with us. It's a conversation to have with your electrician. a lot of this conversation today is really trying to get you comfortable speaking the language of lighting and feeling more comfortable with LEDs. We know that a lot of you are having more interactions now with architects, interior designers, and lighting designers than ever before. The collaboration is on a different level than it has been. Electricians are being talked to, at the beginning of a project as opposed to during the install. So it's good that we can all speak that language during this process where we're all kind of coming together and collaborating on these really beautiful interiors. So this is just kind of another little visual for you. One of the things I did want to do is talk about some of the issues with, the integral versus remote. So for example, we designed this loop double sconce. This is by Deirdre Jordan out of Chicago. She owns a furniture company called Troskin. Love this fixture, stunning, beautiful. We designed it in a way where you only had to use one J box, and then you'd basically run a hole with wires through the wall from the bottom to the top. However, that only works for the remote driver in which it was designed. A lot of people were like, love the fixture, but we kind of need it with an integral driver. So engineering got together and they designed the fixture with this matching metal plate between the two pieces of glass. Shown here in satin nickel, which I'm realizing we probably should have shot this in like a black and brass on this gray wall. But anyhow, so essentially you have those integral drivers housed behind the glass with the wires going through, so you can mount it to a standard J box. So now we got to get into dimming. It's a whole nother conversation, right? A lot of the new buildings now are done with 0 to 10 volt dimming. And that's whether it's construction or residential or commercial. So this is actually a beautiful home by MBJ Design out of Seattle. Wonderful group. I don't know if you like cocktails, but if you do, follow one of the principals, James. He has just like his Instagram is amazing. Olsen Kundig obviously does like amazing commercial projects. A lot of what they're doing is going to be the 0 to 10 volt as well. So we're going to talk about the benefits of the 0 to 10 and why people use them. So Mark, who I mentioned earlier, our director of engineering, made these amazing videos that are on our resources page of our website in an effort to just help people understand the basics of these dimming and drivers and how they work. So we're going to show a quick excerpt of that to make sure we're all on the same page. Beautiful. So that's for new builds, but a lot of people are doing an existing building. I grew up in the Bay Area, love the old Victorians. I'm sure in Seattle, there's a ton of old buildings where they're, redoing the interior, but, kind of maintaining the exterior. In a lot of those cases, there's already wires pulled and it's 2 wires. So how do you do these new fixtures with the kind of advanced LEDs and drivers with a 2-wire dimming system? Mark, again, has a wonderful video for us that will kind of aid us in that as well. So that seems really confusing, am I right? It is. So there are solutions to this, and my favorite of them all is this amazing option by Lutron. It's called the Maestro Pro LED Plus dimmer, and it works for all of those different types of dimming drivers. So it's a phenomenal tool, and I highly recommend it. All right, so sometimes we design a fixture and we say on our tear sheet, for example, this loop single sconce is designed with a dimmable 0 to 10 volt driver. But you come to us and say, well, we're actually doing a 2-wire ELV system. That's generally a conversation that we have most days of the week, and one we want to have that dialogue with you. So in that instance, we have, for example, this particular fixture, an integral 0 to 10 volt driver housed within the fixture. Depending on your system, if we switch the driver, it may no longer fit integrally into the fixture. That's not to say that it will, it's not to say that it won't, but until we know your dimming system, we can't confirm that it will be remote versus integral. So again, having that information up front, not just for us, but for any lighting manufacturer, is immensely helpful so that when you get the fixture on site, it works as intended, not just turning on and off, but also dims. So now we're getting into the fun stuff of LEDs. So we talked about how typically we'll offer 2,700, maybe 3,000K, maybe even 3,500. However, there's new LEDs that we're about to come out with on a myriad of different fixtures that have what's called warm dim technology. Some people call it dim to warm. What's really cool about these is that the color temperature actually is on a sliding scale. It starts at 2000K and goes all the way to 3000K with peak brightness at 2700K. So the benefit of these is what I didn't cover on an incandescent is when you dim down an incandescent, the light actually warms up. The color temperature actually gets warmer, which is a lower number, which is a little counterintuitive. So for example, if you have these in over your dining room table, for example, and you're having a wonderful dinner, you want to dim the lighting to set the mood. And so when you do that and you do dim it down, it warms it so that it's getting like 2,400, 2,300, and it has this really nice, beautiful glow to it. It's also really beneficial in kind of a powder room setting, for example. Say you wake up in the middle of the night, need to use the restroom. Obviously, you don't want to turn on the light and have this like bright 2,700K. When you turn it on and you have the warm dim, and it just turns on and you're at 2,000K, it's that warm red light. It's not that blue light that's going to wake you up. So it's really great for that kind of a setting. So we're going to show you what that looks like. So I filmed this on my iPhone on Friday. So, you know, keep in mind that it's not professionally photographed, but this is really to give you guys an idea of how this works. And let's try and actually get it to work for you. So as you can see, it's at its brightest, and now it's warming up as the fixture dims down. So it's letting out less light, and at the same time giving you this really warm kind of 2000K light, which is, again, like I said, probably what I would prefer to see if I went to the bathroom at 3 and didn't want to wake up. So these are your warm dim LEDs, phenomenally cool. And then going even past that are what's called tunable LEDs. So tunable, essentially you're tuning it to specific color temperatures. So for us, when we brought ours in, we wanted to go all the way down to 2000K because we want to hit that super warm color temperature. And we went all the way up to 6500K, which is like bright, bright daylight, which arguably not really necessary, but you know, if you're going to go for it, you might as well go for it. So anyhow, so that's what we have. And what's really cool about these is you have them on 2 different dimmers. One dimmer affects the amount of light output, and the other affects the color temperature. And these are actually something that I think should be in every residence nowadays. As we all know from COVID, you've worked from home, you know, you've had to, and power to all of you that were, you know, your children's teachers during this time as well. So you understand that you want to have that really functional light in the kitchen at 3000K, so you're paying attention while you're cooking. You want to have really warm, comfortable light over the dining room table. You want to set the mood. You know, same thing in the bedroom. Now, what about in an office space? Or what if you're using that dining room table for both teaching of your children, or you're taking conference calls and you want that brighter light? So the beauty of the tunable LEDs is you can tune that light up to 3500K, to 4000K. So it is that really bright light. So you're focused, you're functioning, you are, you know, in fuego. And then when it comes time for dinner and you want to set the mood, you drop it down to 2400. You raise up the brightness when you want to focus and dim it down when you want to set the mood. So it allows so much flexibility within lighting. And the beauty too is, like, what do people want? People want to choose what they want. This allows you not to have to choose at color temperature, but to choose a range of them at, you know, so it works for them. So I'm going to show you how these work. And again, similar to the last one, it's imperfect, but you'll get the gist. So we went from a really bright white down to a much warmer color temperature. We'll dim it down and then we'll go back the other direction just to show you how you can change kind of the dimming and that color temp. Super, super neat. And don't mind me if I'm just like nerding out really hard, because this is like super cool for me. All right, now just real quick, we're going to get into the importance of layering light. The beauty of lighting is, again, as we've talked about, is the way that it impacts emotions, both in a positive and a negative way. So it's really important to have all these different types of lighting to make sure that you're filling the space in the right way. So the first and, you know, arguably most important for us is ambient lighting. So ambient lighting is going to set the tone of the space. It's soft, it's dimmable, it kind of exists all around. It's not overly focused, it's just, it's dramatic and it's beautiful, it's flattering. And so a lot of different types of the ambient lighting is going to be, you know, some of these decorative fixtures, of which, you know, we sell a lot of, which is why it's probably my favorite. So the Nebula pendant, for example, this is new. We launched it recently. Hand carved alabaster out of Spain. Absolutely gorgeous. These can be hung in a myriad of systems. But again, you have this really beautiful ambient glowing light out of these phenomenally cool stones. This is the Ovalo chain series, which again, it's almost reminiscent of jewelry. It's really cool, really beautiful. But again, providing this both visual interest as well as a really nice ambient amount of lighting. So other types of ambient lighting, wall sconces, which we have a lot of, and they're awesome. I love most of them. Floor lamps are another good one, as well as ceiling mounted or recessed can lighting. So this is an example of a really nice space that has really great ambient lighting. This was designed by Linda Rudderman Interiors out of Seattle. She actually took a couple of our ghosts and made them custom sizes. So again, going back to our ability to customize, super easy to do. Love having that conversation with you. She also has table lamps, floor lamps. The only thing she's missing in this space is some sexy Boyd sconces, but you know, we'll let it slide. The rest of it looks amazing. So the other thing that's really important, again, we were talking about if you're helping your kid with your homework, if you're focused on the lighting that you need to be doing, it's task lighting, whether that's reading, whether it's cooking, etc. So one of the things that we kind of excel at, or you know, we try and do is we try and make some lighting fixtures that are phenomenally functional, some that are really beautiful, and some that do both. And when we hit it and we are able to hit that form and function, it's a really wonderful marriage of the two. The Emanation is one of those fixtures. This was designed years and years ago by an architect named Tony Garrett from HOK. And these recessed into the wall, flush with the mirror, very architectural. But again, you get that light right in front of you, so it's focused, it's flattering. The last thing you want to do when you walk into the bathroom in the morning after a long night is just cans over you, and all of a sudden you're looking like Skeletor. It's not a flattering look. So again, in this situation, you want that light in front of you. So we have a few fixtures that we sell that are perfect for this type of application. This is the eye walls. These are also wonderful. And lastly, the axis. This one's very cool. You can see on the right, it actually does rotate. So the beauty of this one is you can put the light where you want it. You can have it at the mirror, you can have it directly at you, you can have it at your partner. So it's a phenomenally useful tool And we're finding them to be a really wonderful blend of that form and function that I was talking about. Task lighting can also be reading lights. It can be table lamps. It can be floor lamps. In this situation, it's our branch floor lamp. What's beautiful about this fixture, this was designed by Joel Crosby, is both of those arms rotate. And so what you get is 360 degrees of illumination because they can rotate all the way around. So you can put this between couches. You can put it, if you and your partner both have your own chairs, you can put it there. And it allows you to put the light where you want it. Again, making sure that your space is the most functional version that it can be. So the last important part of lighting is accent lighting. Now, a lot of you have probably put some amazing art on your projects. And, it's super important to have these expensive pieces of art illuminated by really beautiful art lighting, because you want those colors to pop. And I promise, if those are LEDs, you're getting like 97, 98 CRI, because those Monets deserve the best. Now, the other thing about accent lighting is they can illuminate architectural details. So a lot of these are used in exterior lighting, for example, to illuminate the foliage, the trees, in this instance, the architectural detail of the slats on that entryway or that garage. So, all of these different types of lighting are super important because they all kind of help to bring the space together. When you have only one, you kind of fall flat. So it's really important to incorporate all three of them at once. So again, the LEDs are an amazing boon for us in manufacturing because it allows us to design in these new and different ways. We're no longer hindered by having to design around an A-lamp or a candelabra. We can design these slim fixtures, phenomenally cool, fit into really tight places. We can, play with different materials. Obviously that nebula with the alabaster couldn't be done in halogen because a halogen bulb gets so hot. We have a fixture coming out in a couple weeks in porcelain, so you can play with these different materials and refract off of and penetrate through and create these ambient glows and just give off this really amazing light. You can have the LEDs that go from 2000K to 6500K and all within one fixture. So LEDs have done a lot to allow you to design in different ways as well as you incorporate them into your projects. So in kind of closing, I'd like us all to do a little exercise. And this, I think, will hopefully help bring it all together. And so if I could ask you all to close your eyes for a moment. So imagine yourself at a dinner party. I don't know about you, but I love dinner parties with friends. Personally, I love to do the cooking, so I'm in the kitchen. We're all sitting at the dining room table. It's absolutely beautiful. You have these sconces that are just at a soft glim on the walls. You have a nebula pendant overhead that's also dimmed down really low. You've got this candle flickering on the faces of your friends, the laughter, and it's a beautiful experience. There's the cheersing of wine glasses, and it's wonderful. And now open your eyes. And I don't know about you, but it's a lot brighter in here. Whether you're in your office or your home office, the light is much cooler and brighter. Now imagine that lighting in that experience where you just were. And that lighting just wouldn't match the setting. And so that's kind of the power of lighting is you're able to curate and create these really beautiful moments and environments for your clients, and you have the skills to do so, and you have the amazing manufacturers to choose from. Tremogagné has so many cool LED and lighting manufacturers, and so you take those integral components, those wall sconces, that focal piece above the dining room table, and just create this wonderful environment for your clients that they then go home and they go to bed and say, wow, that was such an amazing dinner party. The food was great. The friends were great, but the ambiance was perfect. It was exactly what we needed. And so with that, I'd like to say thank you so very much. It's been wonderful having you all here, and we really appreciate the time that you guys took to learn a bit more about lighting and what we do and how we do it. So anyway, thank you to Trimble Gagne. Thank you to the Seattle Design Center. Thank you to all you who stopped in to help learn from this presentation. And I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.